I'm Emily Guy Birkin, and you're listening to Deep Thoughts About Stupid Shit. Because pop culture is still culture, and shouldn't you know what's in your head? On today's episode, I will be sharing my deep thoughts about the 1995 film Clueless with my sister, Tracie Guy Decker, and with you. Let's dive in.
Have you ever had something you love dismissed because it's just pop culture? What others might deem stupid shit, you know matters. You know it's worth talking and thinking about. And so do we. So come overthink with us as we delve into our deep thoughts about stupid shit. This show is a labor of love, but that doesn't make it free to produce. If you enjoy it even half as much as we do, please consider helping to keep us overthinking. You can support us at our Patreon. There's a link in the show notes. Or leave a positive review so others can find us. And of course, share the show with your people.
So, Trace, tell me what you remember about Clueless.
So actually, I'm not 100% sure I've seen it. If I have, it's been a long time. I realized that I was mixing it up with Legally Blonde.
Easy to do.
Yeah. So like when we talked about that you were going to share your deep thoughts about this film, like I was thinking of Legally Blonde. So I know it has Alicia Silverstone in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the character's name is Cher.
Yes.
And her best friend is Black, right?
Yes.
And I know that because my daughter wanted to go for Halloween as Cher, and her best friend, who is Black, was going to be that
Dion.
character whose name I don't know. Dion, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought this Halloween costume with like a yellow plaid mini skirt and yellow plaid cardigan. That's it. That's all I know.
All
so
right.
not a lot. I'm excited to hear from you about this film. So, but before we get there, like, why are we talking about it?
So this film came out at exactly the right time for me. I was 16 years old when it came out, and it was about kids who are up basically 16 years old. So it was geared specifically towards me, and I loved it. I loved it. Now, partially because Paul Rudd is the love interest in it, and Paul Rudd is like an angel sent down to all of us. First,
it's funny. I just last night watched the Community episode where Jeff says religion is kind of like Paul Rudd. Like, I see the appeal, like I get why people like it, but I wouldn't cross the street for it.
he's just he's adorable and a mensch, it seems like, and like silly. Mostly the adorable is what I was focused on back in 1995. And the other thing about him is, like, they talk about he doesn't age, and you can actually see the difference. Like, he looks so baby-faced in this film, but otherwise exactly the same. Like, he just got a little bit sharper in the intervening 30 years. Yeah, so Paul Rudd, big fan. It is based on kind of a retelling of Jane Austen's Emma.
Oh.
And I just recently found out that Amy Heckerling, who was the writer and director, she had done Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which I've never actually seen. You know, she was interested in doing another teen film, but she didn't want an unhappy kid. And the studio executives, they didn't want her to do a movie about the nerds. They wanted someone who was popular. And so she thought back to how much she enjoyed Emma, because I don't know if you've read Emma.
No, that's not what I've read.
Okay. So Emma is this very privileged, kind of spoiled young woman, but she has this good heart, and she is just very like a happy-go-lucky person. And so she does things that are not necessarily great, but always from a good place. She doesn't recognize her own privilege, and that can cause people to be hurt sometimes. But again, she doesn't mean anything by it. And the story is a little bit about her growth and her becoming a better person is a little too strong, but growing into her good heart. And she's a very sunny character. So Amy Heckerling was like, okay, what if we put that character in Beverly Hills in current times, which is 1995. I really, really, as I said, it was geared specifically towards me. I was exactly the right age. It was very, very funny. It was a sweet romantic comedy, and it took being a teenager seriously in a way that I really appreciated at the time. I have a very personal reason. Our stepfather got really offended by the trailers showing Alicia Silverstone going, as if, when a boy tries to put his arm around her. And I remember him saying, like, when he lived in California, that was how the women treated him and how it really bothered him. And so I liked this film in part because it was just like, it shows that she's absolutely correct in saying, like, get off of me. Unfortunately, I watched it again last night and
Unfortunately. I really think we should rename this podcast to Tracie and Emily Destroy Their Childhoods.
Yes. So there's still some loveliness in there. It still passes the Bechdel test. It's still a very fluffy movie in that the stakes are never that high. And everything turns out okay, and that's lovely. But it hasn't aged that well in a lot of ways. So I kind of want to talk about a little bit about what hasn't aged well, particularly surrounding the idea of consent. What hasn't aged well in terms of privilege and language. And then there is a gay character, and what was maybe progressive at the time is now feels a little squicky. And so I kind of want to talk about all of that and kind of like dive into what works and what doesn't in this film.
Okay, cool. So, well, let's start, since I don't remember at all. Like, what's the basic, plot line?
Okay. So Cher Horowitz is
she's Jewish.
They never say.
Okay, but Horowitz. Never say.
But Horowitz.
Jewish or German?
And her father is Melvin Horowitz.
Yeah. Okay.
Played by Dan Hedaya, who is of Jewish descent. So
cool.
Who knows?
Okay.
Anyway, Cher is, when we meet her, 15 years old. She's the daughter of a widower, Mel, who is a litigator. He's a big litigator. She describes him as he gets paid $500 an hour to argue with people, but he can argue with me for free because I'm his daughter. And he's a very scary litigator. So even their maid, Lucy, is terrified of him. She runs away from him when she sees him. Her mother died when she was a baby in a freak liposuction accident, something like that.
Okay.
And she's one of the most popular kids in school. Her best friend, Dion, they're friends because Dion also knows what it's like to have people who are jealous of her. And they're both named for important singers from yesteryear.
Oh, so Dion is named after Dionne Warwick.
Yes. So Dion has a boyfriend named Murray who they kind of argue all the time. Cher has made it clear that she thinks it's that high school boys are not worth her time. There is a new girl who comes to school named Ty, who is kind of dressed a little frumpily. And first thing she does is she and I did not understand this at the time. She's like, I could go for some herbal refreshment. And they're like, well, we don't have tea, but there's a Coke machine. She's like, you have Coke? So Ty was kind of a stoner. Ty immediately meets and likes a boy named Travis Birkenstock, who is the school stoner. But Cher tells her, no, he is not good enough for you. You need to date one of the popular boys. And so Cher does a makeover for Ty and gives her all new clothes, rinses out the pink coloring she has in her hair, and tries to improve her. And that is straight from the Jane Austen. Cher has a sort of stepbrother named Josh. Early on, Mel says to Cher, your brother's coming for dinner. She's like, why? You haven't been married to his mother for years and it only lasted a couple of weeks. And he says, we divorce wives, not children. And so Josh is welcome in their home anytime. He hangs out a lot. That is Paul Rudd. He is about 3-4 years older than Cher. He's in college. And he is a do-gooder type. When we first see him, he's wearing an Amnesty International shirt and listening to complaint rock is the way that Cher puts it. Josh tells Cher that she's kind of shallow. And she's like, no, I'm trying to make the world better for other people. So for instance, she gets a bad grade from her teacher, Mr. Hall, who's played by Wallace Shawn Vicini. And she tries to argue her way into a better grade, which succeeds with all the other teachers, but not with Mr. Hall. And so she's like, what can I do to get him to give better grades? And she realizes he's 47, he's single, he's making like minor ducats in this thankless job. What he needs is a boink fest.
That's what Cher says?
What Cher says.
At 16?
Yeah.
Oh.
So she decides to she engineers a romance between Mr. Hall and Miss Geist, who is her, I think, English teacher, and who is also very much a do-gooder. She like does kind of a much ado about nothing, like, oh, I heard Miss Geist said this about you. And then she puts a rose and a note with a quote, Shakespeare quote, in Miss Geist's mailbox in the office. A couple of different things like that. She gives that as her proof to Josh, like, hey, I'm helping two lonely teachers find love. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure it's for your benefit. And then he meets Ty, and she's like, look, I'm bringing her under my wing. And he again is like, not really. So Cher tries to encourage Ty to date a boy named Elton. This is again straight out of Emma. It was Mr. Elton, who was a clergyman, which is why. So Tracie and I just recently talked about Pride and Prejudice, and we were talking about Mr. Collins, and there's some aspects of it that feel very real. And we were talking, I know that Jane Austen was never married, but she did have one proposal. It was from a clergyman. It was after she would have been on the shelf, so to speak. And so it was like her last chance at marriage. And she accepted him the night that he had proposed. She slept on it the next morning, said, nope, never mind. And I believe that clergyman must have been awful, because all the clergymen, Mr. Collins in Pride and Prejudice and Mr. Elton in Emma, are awful. So Elton actually is not interested in Ty, just as Mr. Elton was not interested in, and I cannot remember, I think it was Harriet was the name of Emma's protege. He is actually interested in Cher. They're at a party. They engineer something so that Elton engineers something so that he's giving Cher a ride home. And he pulls over and is trying to kiss her. And she's saying, no, I'm trying to get you together with Ty. He's like, why would I be with Ty? You and I make sense. Me and Ty don't make sense. You know who my father is? And he will not take no for an answer, literally. Like, he keeps trying to kiss her, and she gets out of the car, and then he tries once to get her back in the car, and then he speeds away. She's then held at gunpoint, and she calls.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's a guy robs her. They make a joke of it, like he takes her cell phone and they takes her purse, and then he says, lie down on the ground while I leave. And she's like, and she's wearing a designer dress. She's like, this isn't a Laia. And he's like, an a what? She's like, it's a really important designer. And he's like, I will shoot you in the head. Lie down. So she lies down. She's most upset about the dress, which is kind of like shown as proof that she's shallow. And so she goes to a payphone, and the only person she can think of to call to get her is Josh. So
where's her dad? Does she not?
Well, her dad has already called her and told her, you have to be home in 20 minutes or else, because she has not told him where she is.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Classic teenage shenanigans.
Yeah. So Josh happens to be have a girl over at his dorm, and so the girl and Josh come pick up Cher. The girl's name is Heather. Heather is arguing with Josh about something and ends with, it's just like Hamlet said, to thine own self be true. And Cher says, Hamlet didn't say that. And like, this girl is like clearly judging Cher. She's like, I think I remember my Hamlet correctly. And Cher says, well, I remember Mel Gibson correctly, and he didn't say it. Polonius did. So we're starting to see, like, Josh recognizes there's more to Cher than meets the eye. Cher has to tell Ty about what Elton did.
Was Ty into Elton?
Is devastated.
Oh, she was into Elton.
She was, yes.
Okay.
And it's not that she was, it was that her new friends who were being so nice to her kept pushing her, sort of thing. But,
Yeah.
and she's not quite 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
At that point, it gets to be where Ty becomes more popular than Cher does at school. There's a couple things happening that cause that to happen. And then a new boy comes to school. His name is Christian. And Cher, who had been wanting to like find a boy to help Ty get over her heartbreak, is like, well, I guess there's no problem with me finding love too, because she's really into Christian. She has him come over to her house, like they go to a party together. When he comes over to her house, it's just the two of them, and she is planning for this to be her losing her virginity. And halfway through the evening, he runs away. When she's talking to Dion, her friend, about it in front of Murray, Dion's boyfriend, he lets them know that Christian is gay. The way that he describes it, like Cher's talking about it and Murray like busts out laughing. And then he says he's a friend of Dorothy. He's a disco dancing, Oscar Wilde reading, Streisand listening. And like, so Ty then tells Cher that she's into Josh. Ty is into Josh.
Josh, the brother.
The brother, sort of. Yeah, Paul Rudd. Because he's been very kind to her because he's a nice guy. And not nice guy TM, but nice guy. Ty and Cher get into an argument because Cher is like defensive of the idea that Ty has a crush on Josh.
Ty's not good enough for Josh.
Yeah. She doesn't say that. She's actually very like, do you really think that you'd be a good fit for him? She then realizes that she has a crush on Josh. During that time, Travis, the stoner kid, meets up with Cher, who has decided to head the Pismo Beach disaster relief team. That's a made-up disaster, because she's decided she wants to have a makeover of her soul, and so she's like getting all this stuff and using her popularity for a good cause. When Travis comes, like they're gathering everything from canned goods to housewares, and he brings his old bongs and says, I'm giving these away, but far be it from me to stop anyone else from enjoying. And then he apologizes for something that happened at the party, and because he's now in a 12-step program, he says, and he now being sober, he's finding it's really clarifying his skateboarding, and he invites Cher to see him at I don't know, skateboarding thing. I don't know what you'd call it. Anyway, so Cher and Ty meet up there. They both apologize to each other, and sparks fly between Travis and Ty, and Cher realizes she doesn't have to worry about Ty being in love with Josh. The movie comes to an end when Josh and Cher share their feelings for each other. And then the very final scene, you see them, like they get together, they kiss, and then Cher says, you know what happens next? And you see a bride and a groom. You're like, what? And she's like, no, I'm only 17 or 16, whatever it is. And this is California, not Kentucky. I'm like, and then you zoom in, and it's Miss Geist and Mr. Hall getting married, and Cher is actually one of the bridesmaids. And so the end of the film is the three girls, so Cher, Ty, and Dion, among the other people trying to get the bouquet. So there's a lot there.
All right, where do you want to start?
Let's start with consent, because that was the thing that really bothered me. As I mentioned, like personally, because of the way our stepfather responded to like that moment in the trailer, I was like annoyed and loved the film. What happens when you see her say "as if" is she's walking on campus at her high school, and this boy comes over and like grabs her, like puts his arm around her shoulder and like goes to like kiss her on the cheek, I think, and she like pushes him off and goes, "as if," which she has every right to do.
Sure.
And that reaction of like as if I would be interested in you is perfectly reasonable for someone who has so transgressed her boundaries.
Sure.
And Cher is always like kind-hearted. Like she's not doing this because he's not like her. He's doing this because he's being
transgressed
a
a boundary.
jerk.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not because he's unworthy of love
Yeah.
or attention.
Yeah.
It's because it's about his
Yeah.
action, not his being. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the problem is the scene where Elton is giving her the ride home and then like kisses her against her will twice. Like she makes it clear, no, I'm not interested in you. I was trying to get you with Ty. No. And she gets out of the car. So Cher does a voiceover throughout the film. And after she's robbed and she's going to find the payphone, she says like sexually assaulted, abandoned, robbed, and now I had to get home or something like that. The thing is, the way that the voiceover is given, it is played as a joke that she would use the term sexually assaulted, like that she is overreacting.
She's exaggerating what happened.
Yeah. And that is like, that really bothered me a lot because Elton has her in his car and he is not listening to her. And he has 2 or 3 times reached for her to kiss her when she has made it clear that she is not interested. And in 1995, I know we considered that like, whatever. It's, it's
It was
a
normal.
compliment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that really
doesn't
hit
age
different.
well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you think about like what lessons that gave 16-year-old Emily about what was acceptable just as the cost of being female.
Yeah. Then the other thing that really hit wrong, particularly because of how much I love this actor and I loved this character, is Cher calls Josh at his dorm and you hear the phone ring and you see legs like panning up as like they're both dressed. But what you hear is Josh say, "Oh, come on," to Heather, the girl he has at his dorm room.
Oh, like he's coercing her.
And no idea what that's actually supposed to be. But considering what just happened,
yeah,
it's kind of ugly and
certainly the implication is there, even if that, like, there are other contexts in which, I mean, he could have been saying like, "Oh, come on, Hamlet is a good play. Like, don't bag on Hamlet." But given context, that does seem to be sort of what we're meant to think.
And I think there's like kissing noises too in that moment.
Even more so then.
Yeah. So, and flirting while kissing, like, oh, come on. You can't believe that is true and whatever. But the just implication's not great. So that really had me a little bit concerned. So there are 2 lines in this film that are so funny that I one of them I don't know if it's still funny, but it always cracked me up in the 90s when Christian comes to pick Cher up. He does not make a good first impression on her father.
Turns out to be gay guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's got a very like James Dean kind of vibe going. Well, I don't know. James Dean's he's very well dressed. And he comes in and he's like, "Nice pile of bricks you got here," to Cher's father. And Cher's father says, "Do you drink?" And Christian goes, "No, I'm good." He's like, "No, I'm asking you if you drink. Do you think I'm offering a drink to the underage driver who's taking my teenage daughter out?" So Cher comes down. She's wearing a dress that is very her dad calls it looks like underwear. It's short, it's very form-fitting, and he's like, "Put something on over it." And she's like, "Oh, I was just going to." And what she puts on is like sheer. So, but anyway, as she's going to get the top, the dad says something along the lines of, "As for you, I've got a 45 and a shovel. I doubt anyone would miss you." Which I thought was hilarious in 1995, but it's like, and he said something like, "If anything bad happens to my daughter," or something like that. But
wow,
yeah. But again, hits different in 2024.
Yeah.
So
threats of gun violence, always funny.
Yeah. The other aspect, so there's 2 other things about consent that I wanted to talk about. One is how the character of Christian is handled. So there are a couple of things where other people see, so he takes her to a party where there's dancing, and other people see like he's dancing with her, but then kind of dancing with a guy. And then and Josh sees this and sees him like, there's a girl comes over and puts her hand on his shoulder while he's getting a drink from at the bar. And he like pushes
Removes
her
it.
away. Yeah, removes it. And then is talking to the bartender, like, flirting basically with the bartender who's a guy. And so all Cher sees is him removing the girl's hand, thinking like, oh, he's so into me. And then Josh sees these other interactions. So like there are hints that he is gay, that she's just kind of not naive exactly, but just isn't picking
Missing.
up on.
She's missing. Mm-hmm.
So how Murray knows that he's gay is not clear. But I think the movie is trying to suggest like, if you weren't naive, you'd know. Because he brings home, like when he comes to her house, he brings Spartacus and I can't remember the other one, but Tony Curtis films. When we first meet him, he's reading a book by William S. Burroughs, and he asks her if she likes Billie Holiday. And like some of these are like, okay, I know that is a marker, but are these others? I don't know. I will say another line that is actually funny is she's like, so maybe it's for the best. And this is before Murray tells her that he's gay. She's like, maybe it's for the best. He does dress better than I do. So what would I bring to the relationship? But that struck me as a little bit, well, it's handled so differently than how it would be handled today. For one thing, I feel like today's teenagers, like a 16-year-old in 2024, would have a better sense of the fact that gay people exist.
Yeah. I mean, our whole society has been queered in the best possible way since 1995. I mean, we were still in the middle of Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 1995.
Yes.
So it was not that it's safe, but it's safer. It's safer.
Especially in Beverly Hills. I mean,
yeah. I mean, in 95, it was not safe for a lot of queer folks to just be out and open and openly acknowledged.
And there is a point where it makes sense because she's clearly disappointed when he's leaving. He's like, I'm tired. I think I'm going to head home because he realizes what's going on. And there's a point where he could tell her and doesn't. And he's like, we're friends, right? You're my homegirl. Give me a kiss, like on the cheek. And like, he's clearly trying to make her feel better, but doesn't come out to her, which is perfectly within his rights. But that was something that I found really odd, was the not odd. It hits different now than it did 30 years ago, that he's outed using this string of stereotypes by another character.
Yeah.
Who's a guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of indicated that this is her being naive rather than it being like just not something she noticed, which doesn't mean naive, Then the one other thing that I found very odd was, so how Ty becomes more popular at school is Christian, Cher, and Ty are all at the mall. Ty has met two boys, young men, who she's talking to. They're on the upper level of the mall, and she's sitting on the railing, and like the two boys are like above the level, which already that would make me nervous. But sitting there flirting with these two guys who like have their arms around her, kind of like keeping her upright on that. We cut to Cher and Christian talking about like, oh, she's talking to those randos, and then we hear a scream and look over, and they are like tipping her over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And just being complete assholes. And Christian like runs over, gets her off, and like pushes the guy. Like, what are you doing? You could have killed someone. This is like so not okay. And after that, she at school is talking about her near-death experience. And like the way that Cher's voiceover talks about it really minimizes how awful it was. And then the way that the film has her like talking about her near-death experience, she's like, oh, you just get this spiritual clarity when you're almost dying. And like everyone's like rapt and really interested. And like it minimizes how terrifying that would have been in a way that I just don't think is appropriate. Like she's a kid.
Yeah.
And these boys she was flirting with decide to do something truly traumatic to her.
And cruel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds to me like, though, one of the things that you said about why you liked this film was that it took being a teenager seriously.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing is that actually it really minimized some kind of serious things that it depicts, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, the stakes are never that high, which
Mm-hmm.
I hear is accurate. And also there are these moments where the stakes actually are relatively high for the individuals involved. And in the film, the movie makers really minimize those stakes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is a really interesting thing to see on reflection, when one of the things that attracted you to it was the low stakes and the taking the teenage life seriously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the film is partially a satire. I mean, it's satirizing like wealthy people, shallow people. It's satirizing teenagers as well, and it's like winking at the audience as it's doing it. But it's also like undercutting it
Right.
by making it clear that like yeah, that was idiotic of Cher not to realize this, and those sorts of things.
Well, and to wink at the audience, to say like, yeah, she thinks that was sexual assault, but we all know that's just the cost of being female. And to wink
Yeah.
at the audience and say, she's trading on her quote unquote near death experience, when really it was just some guys flirting with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
danger is flirting.
Mm-hmm. Which is terrifying.
And like, this is not the only example that we could probably find where that is a message we've been given, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like even he's probably hitting you because he likes you, that we tell to little girls.
Yeah. He's pulling on your pigtails because he likes you.
Exactly.
Great. So he's causing me pain. Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, because the message in saying that is that you should be grateful.
Flattered. Yeah. So that was I am curious because this line is still so perfectly written that I don't know if it's like so there's a scene where they are in gym class. They're all waiting in line to play tennis. They've got a one of those automatic tennis ball throwers things, and Cher is surprised by it. And she's like, "Oh my goodness, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen." So the teacher's like, all right, fine, Dion, you're up. And Dion says, I have a note from my tennis coach that has asked me not to do anything that would interrupt his teaching of me. So the teacher's like, fine, all right, Amber. And Amber's the closest thing to an antagonist. She doesn't like Cher and is kind of like low-key mean to her sometimes. And so Amber says, my plastic surgeon has told me that I cannot do anything where balls fly at my face. And Dion says, well, there goes your social life.
Oh, shit.
Roger Ebert described that line as worth the price of admission. He said there's a line that I cannot repeat here because it's a family newspaper that is worth the price of admission. I'm like, it's that one. The one other thing I think worth mentioning that I forgot to say at the beginning is the amount of weight and food and exercise talk that is really
fat-phobic.
It's fat-phobic, and it's also like it's disordered. I mean, Alicia Silverstone is Alicia Silverstone.
Yeah.
She's phenomenally gorgeous. And there are, she talks about calories. She talks about like, oh, I was really bad at it. And she uses this as an excuse for why she's acting weird, because it's one of the times when she's having an emotional reaction. She's like, oh, I was so bad. I had like 2 mochachinos and like 5 peanut M&Ms and like, you know, this list of foods. They show her exercising with Ty, like, you know, we need to improve our bodies and our minds. There's quite a bit of stuff like that. And it was so normal in 1995
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that I didn't even recall that it was in there.
Yeah.
And like, just the normality of a teenage girl. Of course she's worried about her weight. Of course she's thinking about her food.
Yeah.
The scene where she's trying to figure out, like, when she decides Mr. Hall needs a girlfriend, she's like, all right, who wants staff? And so they see her going through the staff like lounge, where she's like, okay, well, the trolls in the math department are all actually married. And then she sees someone's lunch. She's like, ooh, Snickers. Which I'm wondering was product placement, but it was still just like, oh, I'm sidetracked. And like, some of that's like, okay, she's a teenager, chocolate, yes. But the way that she talks about food throughout, I don't know. It's just weird.
Mm.
So.
Yeah. I want to come back to the balls on her face thing.
Yes.
Because it is funny. And also, like, the more I sit with it, especially thinking about other ways in which, like with the food and the exercise, you are describing an impossible expectation, right? That Alicia Silverstone would be kind of put in such a light that we would, I don't know, think about her as like denying herself the Snickers, and like she thinks that she's going crazy because she had 5 M&Ms or something. And that in context with that balls joke where Amber's being shamed for being sexually active, while we know Cher was planning on losing her virginity to Christian.
There is some, to be fair, she's actually more not shamed, but like, about being a virgin. So like, when Ty first comes to the school, Cher says to her, you have something that no one else here has. And she's like, oh, I'm not a virgin. And Cher goes, no, Mystique, because you're new here. And then after she learns that Elton isn't interested in her, she and Dion and Cher like go to like cheer her up. Like they go get lunch and go to a movie. And so they're like admiring the waiters at this restaurant. And Ty says something like, oh, I don't care if they're muscular or not muscular, as long as their, you know what, isn't crooked. And Cher's like, huh? And Dion says, oh, don't mind Cher. She doesn't know. And like, you're a virgin? And Dion's like, no. The PC term is hymenally challenged. And so they have this long conversation about the fact that she hasn't had sex yet, but neither has Dion. Because like, you know, because Cher's like, you're one to talk, Dion. She's like, whoa, my man is satisfied, but technically I am a virgin. So there's some weird stuff in there about.
So like, okay, all right. So now I have more information. So that reminds me of conversations we had when we talked about Twilight, where we end up in situations where girls are expected to guard their virginity as in intercourse and then do other things that they maybe don't want to do, you know, to be hip or popular, or because that's the cost of being female. And, you know, actually this like, oh, she doesn't know, that goes along with the movie really telling us that if Cher were more sexually experienced, she would know that Christian was gay as well.
Yeah.
And I have to say, now, I'm certain I have not seen this film now that you've explained the whole plot. I have not seen this film. So I haven't seen it, and it's 30 years old. And I'm a little disturbed by this notion that this 16-year-old is somehow being shamed or kind of looked down upon because she's not more sexually experienced, because she's 16. And like, and it, I don't know if with Dion saying that, what you just shared, like it feels like, again, where I was going in the first place, that there's this impossible expectation that this child should be worldly and sexually knowledgeable, but also virginal. And that, we look, at least some people, our stepfather, look down on her for her as if in defending her bodily autonomy. But also she completely, obviously overreacted drama queen that she called Elton trying to kiss her sexual assault. Like it just, it's damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say I really appreciated, like, in that scene, Cher says, well, look at it this way. You see how particular I am about my shoes, and they only go on my feet.
I love that. That's fantastic.
So,
oh, that's fantastic.
So, like, I mean, Amy Heckerling, in a lot of ways, gave some really good examples for dealing with this. Like, that is a fantastic response.
That's a great response. Yeah.
Yes.
And she was working in 1995, so she had to get it made.
Yes. So we see the relationship between Dion and Murray, and they're constantly bickering. And it's supposed to be kind of a a joke that they bicker like an old married couple. Although the first thing he says, like, he keeps calling her woman, and she keeps saying, like, I've repeatedly asked you not to do that. And he says, is it at that time of the month? Which,
yucky.
But later on, when Cher is like trying to improve herself, she's like, I noticed how everyone has different strengths, things that are good. And so like how Christian wants everything to be beautiful and interesting, and this, that, and the other. And then Murray and Dion are so considerate of each other when no one's watching. And so it's to be this idea that, like, they are putting on this performance for other people, but they really are together. And there's at the party, Dion freaks out because Murray is shaving his head at the party. And she's like, this is just before yearbook photos. What am I going to tell my grandchildren? And then she's like, all right, that's it. I'm calling your mother. He's like, no, don't call my mom. Which is the hilarious thing is, it's Donald Faison plays Murray. He was in Scrubs, if that's okay.
I don't know.
I knew this because I watched this movie so many times as a teenager. He's bald the entire time. You just see him with hats on. And like, I've never seen Donald Faison with hair. He always is bald. So like, they have this whole scene, and like, you believe it at the time, but like, you never see him without a hat other than that scene.
The actor was bald the whole time. That's funny.
Yeah.
So, did we cover what you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do want to say there are some things that hold up well. The soundtrack, for one, it's a fantastic soundtrack. The final scene is like the very last image is Cher and Josh sharing a kiss at the wedding. It is so hot. Seriously, if you get a chance, just watch the last kiss.
The last
scene. Hot. Whew. And the film is quotable. It's whether or not those quotes hold up. There's also there's some language. So, for instance, one of the things that Cher does to get Mr. Hall and Miss Geist together is she gives him some coffee. She says that she mixed up her lemon Snapple with her father's Italian roast that morning, and so does he want it? Maybe Miss Geist would want some. But the way she describes it is like, I was a total R word and mixed up the lemon Snapple.
Oh.
And then there's a point where I think Ty calls herself a tard. And so like that completely slipped under the radar in the
95,
90s. Yeah. The fashions are also, now part of this is my fashion sense was forged in the fires of 1995, but the fashion is also really, really amazing. And
my kid looked really cute in that.
Oh yeah, that's
in the Halloween costume. Like, I was like, oh, this is really adorable. You sure you don't want to wear it?
Yeah.
No, yeah. Mom.
So like it's the kind of baby doll dresses paired with they're Cher never pairs them with like Doc Martens, but you see Doc Martens and stuff like that. And
And like
that was my
high
look.
socks, like knee
Oh
socks,
yeah,
knee high
socks
socks.
up over the knee. Yep. I mean, the fashion's also a little bit weird too because there's very much a sexualizing element of these teen girls.
Yeah.
And I don't, watching it this time around, I remember I was thinking like those skirts are super short, like super short.
Yeah, super short skirts. Anything else that you want to lift up that does still hold up?
Mm. I do like the friendships between the three girls is it's nice to see. It does pass the Bechdel test, as I mentioned. So, like, you've got the three girls. Now, they talk about boys a lot, but they also talk about clothes and they talk about test scores and they talk about their parents. And, so that they talk about driving. So, it does feel like a well rounded look at what girl, and that's what I mean about it took teenagers seriously.
Mm.
Like, they're not one dimensional, even though that is the way people look at Cher. They assume she's one dimensional and she is not. And so the relationships between these three girls is also like worth looking at because I don't know how often we get examples of female friendship at all.
Yeah, no, we really don't. I mean, I think doing this project with you, I've really started to notice just how often it's like if we have a female protagonist, then she's like Hermione, like the
Mm-hmm.
one girl in the core group, or she's, the not like other girls exceptional character
Mm-hmm.
who
Mm-hmm.
has no peers,
Mm-hmm.
like Belle or like Scully.
Scully, yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
that's Cher. She starts off by saying, like, the opening shot is a whole bunch of like things happening, like kids at a pool party and stuff like that in Beverly Hills, so like super super wealthy. And Cher's first line and as voiceover is like, "I know what you're thinking. Is this an Noxzema commercial?" And then she says, "But I actually have a way normal life for a teenage girl." And then they show you the ways that she doesn't because she is so wealthy. But she doesn't want to be on anything other than a normal teenage girl. She doesn't consider herself to be anything other than a normal teenage girl. And that is refreshing.
Yeah.
As is, I also really appreciate the relationship between Cher and her father. They clearly really love each other. When she gets a report card and she tells her father it's not ready yet. And he's like, "What do you mean it's not ready yet?" She's like, "Well, I'm using these grades as a jumping off point for negotiation." And so when she finally gets the report card back, she tells him, like, he asks, like, "Did you do extra credit? Did you do, anything to improve these grades?" She's like, "No, this is entirely based on my power of persuasion." And he says, "Honey, I couldn't be more proud than if they were based on real grades." Because that's what he does for a living. So their relationship is this lovely relationship, also based on Emma, because Emma's father is like kind of a misanthrope, but like a funny one. It's similar to Mel.
The line that you shared about Josh, actually, I found very poignant. We divorce wives,
Yes.
not children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's also really the fact that Josh is always welcome in the Horowitz house is lovely, and it's really clear that Mel may be gruff. Like the first time he meets Ty, Cher has her over for dinner, and Ty is sitting in Mel's normal seat, and Cher's going, "Daddy, this is my friend Ty," and he goes, "Get out of my seat." She like gets up and moves over. But the gruffness is like he's got a heart of gold, really, and Cher knows how to wrap him around her finger. But she also listens to him. For instance, like she drives even though she doesn't have a license, and she has a car that her dad bought her even though she doesn't have a license. And he gets like second notification of 3 different tickets. She's like, "That's funny, I don't remember getting a first notification." He's like, "The ticket is the first notification. I didn't even know you could get a ticket if you didn't have a driver's license." She's like, "Oh, you can get a ticket anytime." And he says to her, like, "You cannot drive that car unless there is a licensed driver there with you. And so, and instead of just going and doing whatever she wants, because she could, because he is always busy and all of that, and like she's already been driving without a license, she immediately goes and says, all right, Josh, come with me. You're a licensed driver with nothing to do. So it's a lovely dynamic that I really appreciate, especially now as a parent of I guess he's a teenager. He's 13.
Yeah.
That give and take, that it shows like a long lasting, loving parent-child relationship.
Yeah. Well, should I try and summarize what we talked about?
Sure.
I will try. It will be invisible to our listeners, but we've been interrupted a couple times, so I will try to remember what we talked about. So Clueless with Alicia Silverstone, it passes the Bechdel test. And it sounds like there's some really positive and well-rounded female characters in this that we can feel good about. But there are also some lessons about the cost of being female in terms of men's attention, and what we just have to accept as normal. There's also some kind of what feels weird in 2024 ways of talking about and making assumptions about gay men in particular, probably queer folks in general, though it sounds like it was specifically a gay character. And
there's also the gym teacher. There's a little bit of a joke about the gym teacher in the long history of female gym teachers.
Oh, a lesbian
same-sex
gym
oriented.
Teacher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So some representation around queer folks that doesn't hold up to today's standards. I also heard a bit about disordered eating and attention to the female body that feel unhealthy by today's standards.
Mm-hmm.
Some basic stuff around language, the R word that
mm-hmm.
mainstream American culture just had not seen in 1995, but that
mm-hmm.
really stands out today. Let me think, what else did we talk about? I was struck by the impossible situation of sexuality where Cher and her friends are expected to be sexually knowledgeable, but not sexually available, or at least not, well, I was going to say at least not for vaginal intercourse, but it's not just that, because the antagonist gets burned for reputation of oral sex. Mm-hmm. So there's some just impossible
mm-hmm.
context for these teenaged girls. Good soundtrack, fun fashion, quotable lines, which may or may not hold up 30 years later. What am I forgetting?
Just a lovely father-daughter relationship, which, I mean, it would be great if it were a mother-daughter relationship, because we don't get enough of that. But
any.
It's based, yeah. But it is based on Emma, which did have the similar sort of dynamic between Emma and Mr. Woodhouse, her father.
Yeah, I had forgotten that piece. I didn't name
mm-hmm.
at all that this is based mm-hmm. on Jane Austen. Yeah, in part for actually that background is really interesting to me, that the movie maker wanted to make another teenage movie, but she didn't want an unhappy mm-hmm. protagonist
or cynicism. Like there's a lot of cynicism in movies made for teens or about teens, and so she wanted some sunshine. And that's one of the things that's so charming about the film, is that Cher is a lovely kid in the sense of she really does mean well, and she really does want to do better, and all of her missteps come from a good place and are the sorts of things a 16-year-old would need to learn. Mm-hmm. And so one would presume that 44-year-old Cher out there now is a mensch. She's out there mm-hmm. being a mensch and being good to her friends and family, and maybe still a little clueless about how her privilege may come across, but disarming people because she wants to help anyway, you know?
And that was something also that we noted at the end, is that her relationships do, actually all of them sound pretty genuine. Like with Ty, with Dion, with her dad, with Josh, it sounds like they all are, you know, despite coming at them, like Ty in particular, like as you were telling me what happened, that does not sound like a genuine way to approach a friendship. But the fact that they then fight and then make up, that sounds actually based in genuine mutual regard.
Yes. And even like she ends up saying that Christian becomes her favorite shopping buddy. And like when she's thinking of all the good things about her different friends, like I love what she says about him, is he wants everything to be beautiful and interesting. You know, what a lovely thing to say about a person. And so yes, there's a genuineness to all of her relationships. And even when she messes up, she makes it right in a way that is, it provides a good example for how to fix when you do things wrong, and provides a good example for like good-hearted apologies and that sort of thing.
All right. Well, maybe I'll put it on my watch list.
It's free on YouTube with ads.
Okay. So next time I am going to bring you my deep thoughts about the Breakfast Club. And I understand that you have some listener comments that you wanted to share. Let's hear them.
So a couple of listener comments. My friend Eric, who is married to Joanna, said about A Christmas Story, Joanna loves this movie. I hate it. To which Joanna responded, I keep telling Eric we have a perfect leg lamp front window, but he hates it so much he won't take the bait. And I've seen their front window. She's correct. That would be the perfect front window for the leg lamp. Crystal said about Labyrinth, I loved this movie as a kid. I definitely need to watch it as an adult. And then she did a crying laughing emoji, because yeah, it's a little different when you see it as a grown up.
Yeah.
And then finally, about the Buffy episode, James said, I loved this episode. It allowed me to geek out for a bit on one of my favorites, and I wholly appreciated the ever-expanding viewpoints on the show. It also made me realize that as we grow up, it's truly disturbing to see how some of our favorite creators have turned into raging assholes. And boy, that's
amen,
true.
James. Amen. Yeah. Well, listener, if you have some deep thoughts inspired by our deep thoughts, we want to hear it for reals. So we will put a link in the show notes to our reader forum, or you can send us an email, guygirlsmedia@gmail.com, or become a patron. For as little as $2 a month, you can be part of the inner circle and interact with us on our Patreon page. The link is in the show notes. Until next time.
See you next time.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. You're a deep thinker. I can tell. Let's make it official. Head on over to our website, guygirlsmedia.com, and make sure you don't miss a single deep thought. You can get me and Emily in your inbox every week. What are you waiting for? Thanks for listening. Our theme music is Professor Umlaut by Kevin MacLeod from incompetech.com. Find full music credits in the show notes. Until next time, remember, pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head?